What if the world didn't end in a single night, but instead kept dying slowly for almost 3 decades? What if the virus that destroyed civilization didn't disappear? It evolved? And what if the survivors didn't rebuild the world? They simply learned how to hide inside its ruins? This is 28 years later. Almost 3 decades have passed since the rage virus first escaped containment and tore humanity apart. At first, it was believed the infection would burn itself out. But that hope was an illusion. The virus didn't fade. It adapted. It learned. And in some parts of the world, it never truly stopped spreading. Entire nations collapsed permanently. Cities became dead zones. Civilization shrank into isolated pockets of survival, surrounded by infected wastelands where sound still means instant death. Humanity is no longer dominant. It is contained. The United Kingdom, once the epicenter of the outbreak, remains one of the most dangerous quarantine zones on Earth. Surrounded by sea and military blockades, it is officially declared uninhabitable. But inside that dead zone, life still exists. Not civilization. Survival. Small communities have formed in remote regions, islands, and fortified zones where the infected have less control. One of these places is where we meet a new generation of survivors, people who never saw the world before the outbreak. To them, silence is not a rule. It is instinct. Among them is a young survivor named Isla, who has grown up hearing stories of the old world like myths. Skyscrapers that touch the sky. Cities that never slept. People who spoke freely without fear of triggering death. To Isla, those stories feel impossible. Because her reality is simple. If something hears you, you don't get a second chance. Her community survives through strict discipline. Fishing, scavenging, and avoiding contact with anything from the mainland. But everything changes when strange signals begin appearing from inside the quarantine zone. Not military broadcasts. Not distress calls. Something more deliberate. Human. A decision is made. A reconnaissance mission must go back into the mainland to understand what is happening. Because something inside the quarantine zone has started behaving differently. The infected are no longer just wandering blindly. They are moving with purpose. That alone changes everything. Isla is chosen for the expedition alongside a small group of hardened survivors and former soldiers who understand the risks better than anyone. Their mission is simple in theory. Enter the mainland. Confirm what is happening. And return immediately. But nothing about the mainland is ever simple. As they cross into the quarantine zone, the world changes instantly. The silence becomes heavier. The landscape feels abandoned by time itself. Cities still stand in ruins, but nature has reclaimed them aggressively. Buildings are wrapped in vines. Cars are buried under layers of decay. The wind moves through broken structures like a warning. And everywhere, there is the sense of being watched. The infected are not gone. They are everywhere. But something is different about them now. They don't behave like mindless animals anymore. Some move in groups. Some respond to environmental cues. And some appear to avoid certain areas entirely. As if instinct itself has evolved. The team realizes quickly that the rules they once knew are no longer reliable. Sound still attracts danger. But now, silence does not guarantee safety. Deeper inside the mainland, they discover abandoned military research outposts. Evidence suggests that after the original outbreaks, governments attempted to study the rage virus rather than eliminate it. They wanted to understand its speed, its aggression, its ability to override human behavior completely. But research does not stay contained. One of the labs appears to have failed catastrophically. And whatever was being studied escaped. The group finds disturbing signs of mutation in infected subjects. Some are slower. Some are more aggressive. Some show signs of coordinated movement. This is no longer just survival at the fastest. It is evolution under pressure. As tension rises within the group, paranoia begins to break their unity. Every sound becomes a potential death sentence. Every shadow feels like movement. Trust begins to collapse. And in a world like this, mistrust is just as deadly as the infected. Isla starts noticing something even more disturbing. The infected are not just reacting to sound anymore. They are reacting to patterns. Repeated behaviors. Predictable human movement. It is as if the virus is learning how humans think and adapting to it. Meanwhile, the deeper they go, the more they realize the quarantine zone is not empty. There are survivors inside. But these survivors are not like the ones outside the walls. They have adapted in ways that blur the line between human and infected. Some communicate in silence permanently. Some live among infected without being attacked. And some appear to have lost parts of their humanity entirely in exchange for survival. The most terrifying realization begins to form. After 28 years, the world is no longer divided into infected and uninfected. It is divided into those who adapted and those who didn't. As the mission continues, the team suffers losses one by one. Not always from direct attacks. Sometimes from panic. Sometimes from hesitation. Sometimes from making a single sound at the wrong moment. Isla is forced to grow faster than she ever expected. She learns that survival is not about strength. It is about control. Absolute control over fear. Eventually, the remaining survivors reach a central location that appears to have been a long-term containment and research hub. Inside, they discover the most disturbing truth yet. The rage virus has not remained static. It has been evolving through generations of hosts. Becoming more efficient. More strategic. Less chaotic. The infection is no longer just a biological outbreak. It has become an ecosystem. A system that rewards adaptation and eliminates weakness. And humanity, after 28 years, is still struggling to survive inside a world that no longer belongs to it. The final confrontation forces Isla to make an impossible decision. Save what remains of her team. Or ensure the truth they discovered makes it back to the outside world. Because what they have learned changes everything. The infected are not dying out. They are becoming the dominant form of life inside the quarantine zone. And if the barrier ever breaks again, there may be no world left to save. As chaos erupts, the mission collapses into survival. Some sacrifice themselves to ensure others escape. Others are lost to the infected as evolution reaches its most violent expression. Isla manages to escape with fragments of data and proof of what the mainland has become. But she is no longer the same person who entered. No one is. Back outside the quarantine zone, the survivors are forced to confront a terrifying possibility. The infection is no longer just contained. It is learning how to escape containment. And the world may be standing on the edge of a second collapse. One far worse than the first. Because the first outbreak was chaos. But the second will be intelligent. And as the final shot lingers on the silent, broken mainland, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The world didn't end 28 years ago. It has been dying slowly ever since. And now, it is learning how to fight back. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to subscribe to Movie Story Recaps for more cinematic breakdowns like this. Comment which movie you want next. Because in this world, survival is no longer human.